Marjorie Finch had never intended to get involved with millionaires, misplaced envelopes, or the sort of dinner parties where champagne flowed more freely than common sense. She was, at best, a woman who preferred quiet corners of libraries and the dependable hum of the copy machines at the office where she worked. Nothing about her life encouraged adventure. In fact, it politely discouraged it at every turn. But that was before the envelope. It wasn't even hers. That was the worst part. She found it in the train station, wedged between the plastic bench and the wall, stuffed thick, sealed, marked only with a neat initial, S. No address, no stamp, no other identifying information. She hadn't meant to open it, and she didn't. She simply picked it up, turned it over, and stared at it. The envelope felt heavier than paper should feel, like something important lived inside it. Marjorie spent most of her train ride staring at the envelope on her lap, wondering whether she should find station security, but she reached her stop before a decision reached her. She hurried home, envelope still in hand, rehearsing ways she could explain it if someone had followed her. No one did. In the dim kitchen of her apartment, she set it on the table, half expecting it to move or glow. It didn't. It sat there, unassuming and silent, while she made tea and tried to think. She eventually called the number for Lost and Found at the station. A bored employee told her they closed at 5 and she'd have to come in the next day. She wasn't thrilled, but fine. She could deal with it tomorrow. By the time she went to bed that night, the envelope had faded from her thoughts. But the next morning, everything changed. At exactly 9:12 a.m., as she sat at her cluttered desk at Harper and Day Publishing, her phone rang. An unfamiliar voice spoke fast, sharp, and urgent. "Is this Marjorie Finch?" Her stomach tightened. "Yes. You have something that belongs to Mr. Silas Thorne." She had no idea who that was. I found an envelope, if that's what you mean," she said carefully. "I was planning to return it to the station." "You will not take it to the station." The voice cut in. "You will bring it to the Thorne estate today, noon. You will hand it directly to Mr. Thorne." "What? I have work." But the line had already gone dead. Marjorie stared at her phone, heart pounding. The Thorne estate. The name buzzed faintly in her memory. Thorne Industries. Those impossibly wealthy developers who owned half the city. She'd seen Silas Thorne in magazines before. Imposing, dark, suited, with the sort of smile that looked like a threat softened into charm. Her hands trembled. She wasn't built for this. She wasn't built for anything dramatic at all. But at 11:15 a.m., she was already on the bus to the wealthy hills outside the city, envelope in her bag, trying not to sweat through her blouse. By 11:58, she was standing in front of an iron gate taller than some apartment buildings. A guard checked her name, scanned her face, and waved her through. She followed a neatly designed path up to a mansion that seemed carved from marble and hubris. A tall man in a crisp suit opened the door before she could knock. "Miss Finch," he said, "right this way." She was ushered through rooms that sparkled with wealth. Paintings, artifacts, chandeliers, carpets that looked softer than clouds. She tried not to gape. They stopped in a sun-filled room where 5 elegant people lounged around a long table. 4 men, 1 woman, all in expensive suits, all watching her with detachment. A man at the head of the table, mid-40s, sharply dressed, effortlessly confident, turned slowly toward her. "Silas Thorne," he smiled tightly. "Ah, the Good Samaritan." She swallowed. "I'm just returning this envelope," she said, lifting it slightly. "I found it yesterday." A ripple of laughter moved through the room, low, amused, the kind that made her wish she had never been born. One man, blond and polished, actually wiped a tear from his eye. Silas leaned back. "My dear, do you know how many people would kill for what's in that envelope? Marjorie stiffened. "I don't want anything in it. I just want to give it back." Another wave of laughter. She felt small, foolish. Why were they laughing? She was only doing the decent thing. Silas stood and held out his hand. "Very well, give it here." She hesitated only a moment, then stepped forward and handed him the envelope. His fingers brushed hers, cool, deliberate, and he tore it open. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper. He glanced at it, expression unreadable. "Well," he said softly, "this is unexpected." He folded the paper back into the envelope and slid it into his inner coat pocket. "You've done a good thing today, Miss Finch, and you've saved yourself considerable trouble." "I didn't know there was trouble," she murmured. "There always is." He replied almost gently. The others chuckled again, quieter this time. The man in the suit who had escorted her cleared his throat. "Mr. Thorne, your noon meeting." "Yes, yes." Silas waved a hand. Then he looked at Marjorie. "You're free to go." Relief rushed through her so fast she nearly swayed. She nodded awkwardly. "Thank you. I'll just leave." She backed out of the room like an uncertain cat, then turned toward the long hallway leading out. But that was when the real owner walked in. The door at the far end swung open, and a woman in a slick blue coat burst inside, breathless, wild, dyed, hair damp, as though she'd run through a storm. "There it is," she shouted, pointing straight at Silas Thorne. "Give me my envelope." Silas's expression froze. The woman marched toward him, not caring about the stunned faces watching her. She was younger than Marjorie had expected, late 20s, freckled, intense. Her voice shook with fury. "That's mine, Silas. You know damn well it's mine." Silas lifted his chin. "You're mistaken." She barked a humorless laugh. "Like hell I am." Marjorie, halfway down the hall, stopped in her tracks. Her heart thudded. She watched as the woman shoved past her, then stormed right up to Silas, fists clenched. "Give it back." Silas offered a cold smile. "If you wanted to keep it, you shouldn't have dropped it." The woman's jaw tightened. "You stole it from me, and you know why I had it." The other executives shifted uncomfortably. One of them muttered, "Here we go again." Marjorie felt like she'd stumbled into a play without knowing her lines. The woman turned suddenly, locking eyes with her. "You're the one who found it." Marjorie nodded weakly. Yes, I thought it belonged to Mr. Thorne." "It doesn't." The woman snapped. "It belongs to me. It always belonged to me." Silas stepped forward smoothly. "Miss Finch, ignore her. She's unstable." The woman whirled. "Unstable? Try informed. That envelope contains proof of everything you've been hiding. All your deals, all your shell companies, all the fraud your empire is built on, and you know it." The room fell deathly silent. Marjorie's breath caught. Is that what she'd carried around? Evidence of a billionaire's crimes? Silas laughed softly, too softly. "You have quite the imagination, Samantha." Samantha, the initial on the envelope. Before Marjorie could process anything, Samantha strode to her, gripping her hands. "Please tell me you didn't let him open it." Marjorie's stomach dropped. He already did." Samantha's face drained of color. Her shoulders sagged as though the weight of the world had suddenly been dropped onto them. Silas stepped closer, voice silky. "So you see, Miss Finch, returning that envelope was the right choice." Samantha turned toward him slowly. Dangerous calm spread across her features. "You think you've won. You always think that. But you didn't prepare for her, did you? The one person who had nothing to gain." Silas's smile thinned. Samantha looked at Marjorie again, this time with something like hope. "Do you remember what the envelope felt like?" she whispered urgently. "Was it heavy?" Marjorie blinked. "Yes, heavier than paper. That's because there were two things inside." Samantha whispered, "A document and a key." Silas stiffened a fraction. Marjorie's pulse hammered. She remembered. Yes, it had felt too heavy. "The key," Samantha continued, voice trembling, "opens a safe in my apartment with the original files. Everything he wants to destroy." Marjorie swallowed hard. But he only took out the paper. Samantha nodded. Because the key slid into the lining, I sewed it there. Silas's calm finally cracked. Enough. Two large security guards entered behind Marjorie, summoned by some silent signal. Samantha grabbed Marjorie's wrist. You still have the key. It's still in the envelope, and he has no idea. Silas's eyes snapped toward her bag. Marjorie instinctively clutched it to her chest. Oh no. The guards advanced. Samantha whispered, urgent, run, and Marjorie ran. Everything after that blurred, racing down the hall, the guards shouting, the echo of expensive shoes pounding marble. She barreled through a side door, through a garden she didn't have time to appreciate, and through a gate left momentarily open by a gardener. She didn't stop until she reached the bus stop near the bottom of the hill, lungs burning, heart in her throat. She boarded the bus without looking back. Only when she collapsed into a seat did she dare open her bag. The envelope was still there, but now it was torn open. The paper Silas had taken was gone, the lining, however. She ran her fingers along it, feeling for anything strange. There, a small bump. She tore just enough to reveal it. Tiny, metallic, unmistakably a key. Her head spun. She had a billionaire's secret key. Evidence of fraud. And apparently a woman named Samantha depending on her. Marjorie Finch, who had never broken a rule in her life, was suddenly holding something that could destroy a man's empire. She spent the entire bus ride wondering how the quiet woman who avoided confrontation ended up in the middle of this. By the time she reached downtown, she knew only one certainty: Samantha needed her. And Silas Thorne would come after her. When she stepped onto the street, a black town car already waited at the curb. A man she hadn't seen before stepped out, adjusting his tie. Miss Finch, he said evenly. Mr. Thorne would like to speak with you. She backed away instinctively. The man raised a hand. You're not in any danger. He just wants to clarify a misunderstanding. People walked past, oblivious. Marjorie's instincts screamed. Sorry, she said shakily. I have to go. She bolted. The man cursed and shouted into an earpiece. She sprinted through crowds, down side streets, weaving through lunch, shower workers until she was sure no one followed. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she ducked into an alley to steady herself. She needed help. She needed Samantha, but she had no idea where Samantha lived. Then she remembered the safe was in Samantha's apartment. Which meant Thorne knew where it was, and he'd go there first, so she had to get there before he did. She did the most reckless thing she'd ever done. She returned to the estate, but not through the front. She slipped through back streets and wooded areas until she saw the edge of the property again. She had to find Samantha before Thorne's guards locked everything down. As she approached the gardener's gate again, a hand grabbed her from behind. She yelped, turning Samantha. She looked frantic, dirt on her clothes, hair disheveled. Thank God. She breathed. I saw what happened. I hid when they started searching the grounds. Marjorie pressed the key into her hand. I still have it, Samantha exhaled shakily. Then all is not lost. But he took the document. That was a copy. Samantha said fiercely, the originals are in the safe. Marjorie's knees nearly buckled in relief. Samantha grabbed her hand. We have to go, now. They ran together through the woods, breathing hard, neither speaking until they'd reached the road where Samantha's old sedan was parked. Once inside, Samantha started the car, hands trembling. Silas will try to destroy everything I have, but if we get to the safe, we can go to the authorities. Marjorie stared at her. Why me? Because you're the one person in all of this who doesn't want anything, Samantha whispered. And that makes you powerful. They drove across the city in tense silence, glancing constantly at the mirrors. 3 black cars appeared behind them at different points. They turned corners, switched lanes, took detours. Samantha was shaking, muttering that Silas must have activated every resource he had. When they finally reached her apartment, they sprinted up the stairs. Samantha unlocked the door and rushed inside, heading straight for a bookshelf. Behind it was a metal panel. A narrow slit waited for the key, but just as Samantha slid it in, footsteps thundered outside the door. Marjorie's blood ran cold. Silas Thorne himself stepped into the apartment, flanked by guards. His smile was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. "Ladies," he said softly, "I believe you have something of mine." Samantha snarled, "It's not yours." Silas ignored her, looking directly at Marjorie. "Give me the key." She stood frozen. Samantha whispered, "Don't." Silas stepped closer. "Miss Finch, you are in over your head. Hand it to me, and I'll forget you were ever involved. You'll go back to your quiet life, and all this will end." Samantha's voice was desperate. "If you give it to him, you'll be helping him bury everything. He'll ruin more people. He'll hurt more people. He'll walk away untouched." Marjorie's heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything. Silas extended his hand. Samantha touched her arm. "Please." Marjorie closed her eyes. She turned the key. The safe clicked. Silas lunged forward, but it was too late. The safe door swung open, revealing stacks of documents, hard drives, and a red folder labeled Project Meridian. Samantha grabbed everything she could and shoved it into a backpack. Silas roared, "Stop her!" But Marjorie, trembling but determined, stepped in front of Samantha, blocking the guards. For once in her life, she didn't care about being small or scared. She stood her ground, and in those seconds, Samantha bolted through the back door. Silas cursed and chased after her. Marjorie followed, heart-pounding, stumbling down the fire escape. Samantha was already in the alley, sprinting toward the street. Silas was faster. He caught her by the arm, but before he could wrench the bag away, police sirens erupted from both ends of the alley. Silas froze. Samantha gasped. "I called them earlier." She looked at Marjorie. "I needed you to stall him long enough." Officers swarmed the alley. Silas tried to speak, but one of the officers held up a hand. "We've received evidence of corporate fraud, interstate financial crimes, and obstruction of justice. Mr. Thorne, you're under arrest." Silas's face contorted. "You fools, you have no idea what," but the officers were already cuffing him. Samantha leaned back against the wall, shaking. Marjorie felt her own legs give out as she sank to the ground. It was over. Or so she thought. Weeks later, Marjorie sat at her desk at Harper & Day, sipping tea, pretending she wasn't now part of the biggest corporate scandal the city had ever seen. Samantha had gone into protective custody. Silas Thorne was facing trial, and Marjorie Finch, quiet rule, following Marjorie, had been on the front page of 3 newspapers. Her inbox was full of messages from strangers calling her a hero. She didn't feel like one. Mostly she felt like someone who wanted her life back, but occasionally she felt proud. That afternoon, a small package arrived for her. No return address. Inside was a single note, handwritten. "You saved more lives than you know. Thank you." Marjorie smiled. She placed the note gently inside her drawer, closed it, and returned to her work. Her life was quiet again, but she was not the same woman who had picked up that envelope. Not anymore.